You ever wake up to a stranger screaming on your front porch, waving a clipboard and calling the cops on you for sleeping in your own house? Yeah, that happened to me. It was 7 in the morning. Sun just peeking through the pines, and suddenly my peaceful coffee ritual was ambushed by the high-pitched shrieks of what I'd soon learn was the president of our HOA, Savannah Collins, a woman with a voice that could rattle double-pane windows and a sense of entitlement so big it needed its own zip code. Sirens coming down my street, neighbors poking out with phones, pajamas, bathrobes, all drawn to the sound of suburban warfare. All this because I decided to spend the night at my grandmother's old cabin that apparently I no longer owned, according to her. Let me back up a sec. Have you ever had someone call the police on you just for existing where you're supposed to be? If so, please drop a comment because some days I swear I'm living in a parallel universe. Officer R showed up moving with that slow cop walk badge, catching the early light eyes, scanning the drama like he'd seen it 100 times, because let's be honest, he probably had. "Ma'am, sir, what's the issue?" He asked, his voice neutral, not buying anybody's story just yet. Savannah, all business, whipped out this thick plastic folder, flapping it around like it was her golden ticket. "This man is trespassing on HOA property that's reverted due to unpaid assessments," she announced, her voice echoing across the street. Suddenly, I was public enemy number one in my own driveway. My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. All I could think was, this is my home. I inherited this cabin 6 months ago. Every legal phrase, every parcel number, I'd read those deed papers until the ink was practically tattooed on my brain. I handed them to Officer R, who laid out both sets of documents on his cruiser like we were opening a crime scene investigation. I spotted it right away. Her so-called evidence was a pile of photocopies in plastic sleeves like she'd printed them off at Kinko's. "These show an 18-month delinquency," she insisted, fingers trembling just enough to betray her nerves. Officer R asked for the original bills. She stammered, "They're with our management company, but I can get certified copies." And that's when I caught the faintest whiff of desperation, fear hiding behind all that authority. The officer studied the parcel numbers, comparing the lot and block with his pen. "This appears legitimate," he said, looking at both of us. "But both parties need verification through the proper channels." I just about laughed at the absurdity. But there was nothing funny about standing in my pajamas while a crowd gathered to watch my life unravel. Neighbors clustered closer, their faces a blend of curiosity and concern, clutching coffee mugs and snapping photos like they were at some live-action soap opera. The air was thick with pine needles, brewing coffee, and the faint electric charge of oncoming trouble. Savannah up close was a study in contradictions, tailored clothes, but the kind you patch and dry clean because you can't afford replacements, a pale mark on her finger where a wedding ring used to be, and this weird mix of legalese and personal vendetta in the way she rattled off the rules. "Homeowners cannot disregard financial obligations and expect to retain property rights," she pressed, as if she was reciting something she'd had to learn the hard way. Officer R handed us back our papers with a sigh so deep I felt it in my bones. "This is a civil dispute. My job is to keep the peace and document both claims." His look told me everything. He was as tired of this as I was. As he drove off, Savannah's jaw tightened. She glared at me, and the next words hit like a thrown gauntlet. "Meet me at the county office in 1 hour. We'll see whose documentation holds up." She spun on her heel and left me standing in a yard full of rubberneckers, wondering when my peaceful sabbatical had turned into a legal cage match. You'd think that threat would shake me, but honestly it fired me up. I was done playing defense. She had no idea who she was dealing with. If she wanted to play documentary chicken, she was about to find out I'd spent half my adult life navigating red tape and regulations. I showed up at the county office 58 minutes later, deed tucked in my jacket. Savannah was already there, staking out the counter with extra paperwork. The clerk, Dorothy, was a pro gray hair glasses and that I've seen it all look. We need document verification, I said, putting my deed on the glass. Savannah swooped in, launching into her act for everyone to hear now with a USB labeled Notices and Ledgers. Dorothy didn't flinch, but the more she read, the deeper her frown got. While Dorothy reviewed, I pulled out my phone and started dialing. The title company didn't even get halfway through before Savannah tried to cut me off, shrieking about manipulation and fraud. It was so loud, people stopped their own business to watch. But when my title company confirmed the transfer was free and clear, no liens, I could finally breathe for the first time that day. Dorothy looked up, her frown now official. These lien papers reference Pine Valley HOA, but this property's in Pine Ridge. That's not a clerical error you'd see on real documents. Savannah's posture faltered, but she didn't quit. I called the county recorder's office, confirmed no valid liens, no HOA action, nothing. Savannah started accusing everyone of corruption, raising her voice until Dorothy finally called security. A gray-haired security guard, cool, calm, and not interested in drama, asked her to move aside. I kept verifying Title Bank Assessor's office. Turns out Pine Valley HOA doesn't even exist. Dorothy stamped my papers, handed me a certified copy, and pronounced no valid liens association on these materials, doesn't exist in our system. Security edged Savannah to the door, but before she left, she gave me this icy smile. I know exactly who to call about you. This isn't over. Should have felt victorious, right? Standing there with my deed, Dorothy's signature, every bit of evidence on my side. But that smile stuck with me like the chill after a storm. Turns out I wasn't the only one. At Dave Mitchell's emergency neighborhood meeting, 3 other families shared eerily similar stories. Dave's wife, Lena, had a folder thick with legal docs from their 2-year battle savings. Gone, almost lost their home. Margaret, an elderly woman in the middle, held up a photo of her mother's old house, tears in her eyes, as she described losing everything to fraudulent fees. $50,000 in legal costs. My mother died thinking she'd failed her family. The room fell silent as the truth set in. This wasn't about one property, but a pattern, a systematic scam. Robert Williams stood up, voice flat from too many times telling his story to people who never helped. We had to take a second mortgage just to pay lawyers. Our kids' college funds are gone. People started to connect the dots, assessment notices that didn't match demands spiking after someone lost a spouse, the same names, the same tactics. Even Savannah, usually a fortress of confidence, started to crumble. When pressed, her voice cracked. I was just trying to save my own house. My husband died and left me with debts. I thought enforcement would solve it. Sympathy was in short supply. Dave stepped up, voice shaking. She destroyed my family. Don't let her destroy yours. Chairs scraped back. People moved. You could smell the mob mentality building. I stepped between them, adrenaline on full alert, just trying to keep things from turning into a lynch mob. Let's do this right, I said. That's when Savannah tried her last card, a so-called federal agent, Marcus Harris, all bluster badge and fake authority. He grilled me for ID, spouted random sections of housing law that didn't make sense, but he couldn't answer a single real question. The crowd watched the mask slip. Turns out, when you actually know the law, fakes don't last long. Harris fumbled, tried to arrest me, but it was all theater. The real twist: he had nothing. In the end, the performance collapsed, and Savannah had nowhere left to run. And just when I thought it was over, Savannah popped up with a fire marshal report claiming my place was a safety hazard, demanding I be evicted. But she'd messed up, wrong address on the paperwork, no matching violations. I called her out in front of everyone, and for the first time, people started seeing through her, maybe even feeling sorry for her. The final showdown was at the escrow office. The air hummed with tension, neighbors gathering outside to see if the rumors were true. Patricia Wheeler, escrow officer, kept it all business. Savannah laid out her case, backed by her so-called compliance contractor, Thomas Mitchell, who turned out to be as fake as a $3 bill. Patricia checked the records, then read out loud, Mr. Edwards, you're listed as the Regional Code Enforcement Director for this jurisdiction. You could hear the gasps outside. The game was over. Savannah and Mitchell were caught. The sirens in the distance, the way they both froze. It was all the closure I needed. Within 24 hours, joint task forces were up, emails flying, files cross-referenced, all the fraudulent liens exposed. The neighbors who once gave me the stink eye were now dropping off casseroles, treating me like I was some sort of folk hero. Savannah showed up on my porch one last time, all the fire gone, holding a real foreclosure notice, hands shaking. I did it because I was desperate, she whispered. I let her in not because I forgave her, but because I saw a broken person, not a monster. Fraud isn't the answer, I told her. She agreed to cooperate to help fix what she'd broken, and that's when I realized sometimes justice isn't about punishment, it's about healing. She became a cautionary tale, but also the first to help us rebuild. 3 months later, my cabin's still standing, coffee tastes better, and the neighbors come by for advice not to call the cops. The HOA bylaws hanging in the rec room now bear my name. Edwards' transparency rules a reminder that power means nothing without accountability. When my supervisor, Sarah, came down to audit the whole mess, she said, textbook enforcement, restoration, and justice, not just punishment. Dave threw a barbecue, kids reenacted the great escrow freeze for laughs, and for the first time our neighborhood felt like a community again. Standing on Dave's porch, stamping the official document declaring us protected from HOA abuse, I realize some of us don't just live by the rules, we write them. And we make sure nobody ever mistakes fake power for the real thing again. So, what do you think? Should justice always mean punishment? Or is there room for second chances even when the law's been broken? Drop your thoughts below. I want to hear your stories. And if you've ever fought the system and won or lost or just survived, tell us. Your story might be the one that changes everything for someone else.